Okay, in this video we're going to talk about modifications to the sights on the M91 rifles. Now, we've already established the Finns became an independent nation, and their decision was to go with the M91 rifle. Okay, so they had some in inventory, and it's a new country. They really don't have a huge manufacturing base, so they decided we're going to just make it to where we have the one gun, the one caliber, and all that other stuff. So they chose the M91. So they gathered up what they had in inventory, and basically, for economical reasons or just speed to get their army organized in that, they took the guns, inspected them. Now, if the gun was fine, they really didn't do anything to it. If it was deemed serviceable, it went into service, as is, no modifications. They didn't go and take one version and modify them all to one type. They just left them as is. And actually, the M91, as is, this original, World War I version, stayed in service with them if the rifles were in good shape until the 40s. But there was 2 or 3 deficiencies in the design of this gun they didn't like. Okay? So most of them were all modified in these simple ways. Okay, some of the modifications were more extensive, but just about all of them, the problem was with the sights. Now that's that older tangent style leaf sight, okay, that comes on the M91. Well, they didn't quite like the fact the Russian unit of measurement, the arshans, I believe, or whatever. So the simplest thing to do would be to cross out the one measurement and stamp another measurement on the side, okay? And we'll look at that. And that was the first probably uniform modification that you see on all of these guns, okay, was the sights. So we'll talk about the quick fix they did, the first step with the sights. And what we'll do is take a look at the 3 versions or 3 examples I had. Okay, the first one up is my Westinghouse variation. This is a US-made rifle, probably delivered to the Russians, and somehow it ended up in the hands of the Finnish. Now there's a couple curious things about this gun. Number one, it does not have the Finnish Army stamp SA on it. It's missing, which there are some guns that show up from Finland that don't. Why it didn't have it on there. Now we have the original Russian graduation here on the left side of the rear sight. Okay. And then we have what they added, their quick fix to this, was their number system, and this is in meters. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5.5, 7, 8.5. All right. There are no other markings on this sight. Okay, this one's a little unusual, even down inside here. And when we look, it is properly marked. You can see it now. It is properly marked in meters on the back for the full extent of it. Okay, so this is a Finnish modified sight. And the front sight is just a plain barleycorn sight, but I want to bring up something because we had a little bit of a sticking point. If I can get this to focus. If you notice that blade has a notch in it, it's tall, but it has a notch filed down into there. All of them do, all 3 of these do. Have that little notch on the back side. See it there. So that's it for the sights on this one. Now, this is a Setstroyetsky from 1898, I believe. Now this one too really hasn't been modified other than we have the Russian markings here. you have the new Finnish graduation here. Now there are some interesting markings on this site. As you see that letter A there, and then that T, I didn't quite color that. And I believe, I'm not sure with that, that's kind of illegible there. But when we flip the site up and look down, there's a number 2 and some markings there on the base, which I believe a number 2 or 2 type site means it was graduated for the Russian 150 grain Spire Point Spitzer bullet as different than the 220 grain torpedo bullet. And again, this is a Finnish sight because it is in meters. There, non-adjustable, and that. So that is the modification. I don't know if that's an original sight or those are Finnish sights or what. But that's some of the markings there. Now the front sight, what I've done is I painted that. This camera don't want to focus. Okay, that's better without that huge distance. I painted that sight with nail polish, and you see where that notch is? That's what I was trying to point out on the other sight. And I did that for a reason. We're going to go back when we shoot these to the sight picture using this older style leaf type sight. A little bit of a controversy I started about the sight picture there. So, and then on this gun, much like the Westinghouse, that was about the only modifications made. The stock, I believe, is still a Russian stock, but we'll look at that under the stock conditions there. And this one is marked SA, where the Westinghouse isn't. So I find that kind of strange, but that's the sight mod on this one. Okay, this is the other Russian built gun. Has the Russian markings there, graduation crossed out, Finnish markings placed on it. Now this one has a number 5 up here on the base and some markings. It is covered in grease. There may be something underneath. I haven't cleaned it to look. And again, this one down in there does have a number 2, which I'm not quite sure if that means that's for the type 2 sight. And again, Finnish leaf because it is marked in meters. Standard fixed rear sights on these. Okay, and again, standard front. And yes, I painted this one too to prove a point. Well, I'm not quite sure what that notch is for. So basically all your 91s that the Finns had are going to have this sight modification. And like I said, if there was nothing wrong with them like these examples, this particular one, I think the stock was reworked on this gun. So we will mention that when we get into stocks. But that was the first basic modification, and if the guns were fine the way they were kept in service and maintained and left alone. And that's why these examples survive with Russian barrel markings and basically the original Russian configuration, other than the sight markings changed.